We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Welcome back to another episode of the California Golden Bearcast, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We're back again after a long hiatus. We are back. It's been a while.
Road. Yeah, it's been a hot minute, as they say sometimes. I don't know who says that.
If a minute constitutes as a month, then dear God, how many months have we missed?
Many.
But I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob. Alongside me, of course, as always, is Andy, who is currently waiting for his vegetables to finish cooking. Or are they done? Have they not finished?
Just gonna expose that to the world?
Oh, yeah. The world needs to know why they hear chewing noises coming from Andy's mic.
No. We're better than that. We've evolved. No more ice in the microphone. Come on now, Rob. That's uncalled for slander. Oh, man. Well, it appears every time that I take a break or we try to take a break, everything happens. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
So either we should break more often, if you think it's good news, or we should never break at all.
We have to take that gamble. Like, it's like a lottery. We don't know, or it's like we're like playing with stocks. We'll take the break, and something might break. But whether that's good news or bad news, there's no guarantee.
GME, baby. GME to the moon.
Diamond hands. Hashtag diamond hands. But
all right.
It's been a month. It's been a full month since you and I have recorded. We have a lot to go through. This is probably going to be a 2-part podcast. But since there's nothing else to do, we just got to start talking, which we've already been doing. But as we head into the intro, some cool tidbits to start off the week. First of all, did you happen to catch the special guest host for Jeopardy last week?
Okay, so I didn't actually catch any of it live, and I didn't really watch any on recording either. So,
Do you know who it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How could I not?
Peak
Jeopardy moment was the. I can't even believe Rodgers said that on air. You gotta admit, I love Aaron Rodgers, but he's a bold guy. I don't know. He was like, when that guy wrote down, "Why did you go for the field goal?"
Yeah.
And Rodgers is like, "You and me both, buddy." I was like, what? Damn. Not even like, no, like, you get that question to Peyton Manning. He's going to laugh. He's going to tell some joke. He's going to
do the coach
avoid
speak.
it. Yeah. And maybe like probably distract him with Omaha, and then move on. Rodgers goes right at it. He's like, nah, yeah, I'm with you. It's like, oh my goodness.
That was amazing. that he was like so open to talk about. But then also at the same time, that's Rogers' like character. Like who's gonna tell him like not to say that? He's gonna say what's on his mind. You know, like remember when they drafted Jordan Love? He was like, "I'm pissed." Like that's basically what he said. So, you know, hey, if he wants to say it, I don't think that there's anyone in Green Bay that can tell him otherwise. Especially after the season he had.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know. He definitely doesn't avoid both the persona of like, obviously my mom texted me and said Aaron Rodgers is the best Jeopardy host ever. So he's done an amazing job, but he also doesn't avoid the like grumpy old man characterization.
Yeah, Aaron was great. I mean, for me, the last 2 weeks as like watching Jeopardy has been awesome because one, you know, Mr. Ken Jennings, an alum of the same high school that I went to, so I had that, and then of course Aaron Rodgers this past week too. So like for me, it was like, woohoo! Like I get two connections to the Jeopardy hosts in consecutive weeks.
Time out. Ken Jennings went to your high school?
Ken Jennings is a grad of Solforn High School.
No way.
Yep, you can look it up on his
smartest guy ever.
You can look it up on his Wikipedia page.
That is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So he went to high school in Korea.
Yeah.
Damn,
it's pretty.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. But that's not the only little fun tidbit that happened. This past week also was the Charity Bowl that happens every year, hosted by. Oh, geez. Wow. How am I forgetting his name? Wow.
Chum Billups?
Yeah. The Charity Bowl hosted by Spencer Hall, a part of the Shutdown Fullcast. So here's the thing. It's you donate to a cause that they select every year, and you pick what school or what university or what program like you want to donate in the name of, right? So like they keep a tally of like each school and how much each school has pooled from their fan bases in terms of, you know, donations. Cal's never gotten past like a few thousand. Like I think 4,000 to 6,000 was like, you know, the usual. Something happened this year where we started skyrocketing just donations. And all of a sudden we're in the running to like make a run at the top 3. Like we're in it. And Nam puts on like a full court press, and a bunch of the Cal guys start to retweet and put those stuff out, as like the Right for California guys and all that, and it just started to go up and up and up and up and up. You know, usually the goal for that, you know, I've seen some people is like we just need to beat Stanford, like, you know, but then all of a sudden, you know, our goals got loftier. We're gonna be the number 1 in the Pac-12. We're gonna get in the top 10. Then it was we're gonna get in the top 5, and then the next one was like we're gonna beat Bama. Like that was like how it kept going up and up and up. And then so usually this was supposed to end Friday night, but because there was so much like momentum behind it, they extended it to Sunday. And heading into I believe Friday night, Cal was sitting at 3rd. All right. So Michigan was number 1, $79,642. We weren't going to catch that. There's no way. Georgia Tech was at number 2 with $26,778. Cal, we're sitting at number 3, $26,092. Bama's right behind us at $25,181, and then it's Ohio State at $19,536. So I was looking at that going, all right, top 5 is secured, right? The Cal donations are still going to trickle in, even going into Sunday, but there's no way. I think Florida, Ohio State was going to make up $6,000 overnight when they had only made, you know, about $20K over the span of the entire week.
Wow. Yep.
And so we put on another full court press, and Nam wrote a piece on Right for California to try and, you know, get more people to donate and do all that. And finally, about 3 hours ago is when the final tally of donations was announced. And this slightly pisses me off because so Michigan ended up at number 1, $89,844.
Wasn't even close.
Wasn't even close. Number 2, Georgia Tech, 48,168. Like that's they jumped. How much? They basically doubled, a little less than doubled their amount, in 2 days, which is incredible. Followed by Cal. You would think they finished 3rd, but they actually didn't. Florida leapfrogged from 6 all the way to 3 with $36,495, and then Cal finishes 4th with $34,680. Alabama's behind Cal at $27,585. So there was somehow they made up what? They had 6,000. They made up $8,000 on Cal over 48 hours, which kind of sucks because I feel like because they didn't announce
It sucks.
It sucks.
It's all a good thing.
It's overall a great thing, but the thing was that they stopped showing or they stopped updating this top 25 from Friday night, and they didn't show the final one up until 3 hours ago. So in my mind, I'm thinking if they had shown it at least one more on Saturday night, I'm pretty sure we could have gotten the donations to make sure we beat Florida, because that's a less than $2,000 gap between us and Florida. Like I feel like we could have squeaked by and gotten into the top 3. But regardless, we still made the college football playoffs in terms of donations. Like we're in the top 4. Like we're going to a January game.
I mean, I lived long enough to hear you say the words Cal beats Bama. So I think that's worth it.
You know what was also worth it is that Cal's amount was about, if I haven't done the calculations, but on Friday night or Thursday, Cal's donations up to that point made up 40% of the Pac-12's total donations. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's super, super cool. So yeah, all of this money is going to be sent to New American Pathways, which is I think it's a nonprofit. I think they help refugees get settled here in America. It's an organization based out of Atlanta. So, it's going to a very, very good cause. And man, this could be peak Cal Twitter. Like we're not a big like Twitter community by all means compared to some of these other ones. But the fact that we like rallied the troops and got ourselves into the top 5, like that is like pat yourself on the back. If you donated or amplified the message, retweeted, did anything, and you're a listener of ours, pat yourself on the back. You're part of this, man. It was so good.
Yeah, real difference making, especially now. It's awesome.
Yeah, I made a donation in the amount of $60.28. Do you know why I made a donation in the amount of $60.28?
I'm guessing that I would feel so good about it. Wasn't Desarte Yarnway like number 28? I was like $60.28. So I was like, oh, number 6 was Trevor Davis number 6. Or trying to think about football players. No, can't. Not off the top of my head.
The reason I put 60 and 28 is that's the amount of tackles that Cal and TCU had in the Cheez-It Bowl. I looked it up. Cal had 60 tackles. TCU had 28. Total of 88 tackles in the game. So I was like looking for like an obscure stat. Then I found that one. I was like, oh, that's a good one.
You didn't want to go obviously with, was it $7? No, $13.
13. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to do that.
Could do $1,300.
I could have done that. Maxed out a couple credit cards. Not 1,300. 13,000. 1,300. Yeah. Anyways, but that's our little fun tidbits. Now we go on to the main stuff. All right, you ready? You ready to talk, Andy? Your hot takes.
This is the juice. We got all the juice. This is like a slow roasted turkey.
As I drink my emergency vitamin C juice.
Actual juice.
Actual vitamins.
So my question to you is like, what didn't happen in the last 4 weeks? The only thing.
What sport wasn't affected in the last 4 weeks? That's what I want to
say.
know.
Like, only thing would be Wilcox didn't have a rumor about him leaving. Like, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's like football is decimated. Like, there's no beating around the bush on that one. That's devastating. But and I'm not gonna spoil it. Oh, and then what's going on with basketball? Friendly old Cal basketball, right? Not competitive. Hey, the Pac-12 looks really good in the tournament. Here I am. Oh, maybe Cal played a tough schedule. Maybe Mark Fox, is better than I think. Well, and then just for the little like salt on your food this week, we have rumors about the AD. So yeah, that's like your pie, and that's, I don't even think all of it, but that's the beginning of the pie, and there's probably more.
Yeah, the highlight of my last week, like, even as I'm putting the rundown together, I made it towards the end of last week, and I was like, okay, this is a pretty good one. Like, before I had to put in the AD rumors, I was like, okay, there's gonna be a lot to talk about. And then I watched Godzilla vs. Kong, and I was like, that was a total waste of time. And I feel like some people are gonna look at the title of this podcast and like feel the same way. Like, it's just bad news after bad news. Like, why do I have to stay here for like an hour and a half just listening to two guys rant about bad news happening to Cal? That's like the whole like reset the clock meme. Like, after like that's the reason I want everyone to listen to this pod, is that you listen to it, you cleanse yourself of all the bad spirits and the bad juju, because we'll talk about it and we'll air it out. We'll put it in a trash can. We'll light it on fire. We'll sing Kumbaya, and then we'll let it go. And hopefully we'll be done until next January.
I'm just trying to come to terms with the fact that you directly compared our podcast to Godzilla versus Kong.
Well, you're Kong. You're Kong. I'm Godzilla.
You aptly described as a total waste of time.
So if you're Kong and I'm Godzilla, who's our Mecha Godzilla? Like, who's that arch nemesis?
Oh, arch nemesis?
Yeah, who's that do we have an arch nemesis?
Yeah. I can't say on air. But we do.
All right. Let's talk, Andy. Let's talk about the first one. We're going to go big picture, and then we're going to move around. So big picture one, of course, Jim Knowlton was stated by John Wilner yesterday on his Twitter account, writes for the San Jose Mercury, saying that Knowlton interviewed for the Northwestern job and was a candidate alongside Pat Chun, who is the AD at Washington State. But then, and all of us were freaking out. Everyone was freaking out. Everyone was like, melting down. Lots of different viewpoints on that, and we can talk about that. But a couple hours ago, John Wilner saying that one of his sources has told him that Jim Knowlton is no longer in the running for the Northwestern job, and had a statement from Cal saying that he's something about him being excited about the 3 years that he's been here and looking forward to all that
He's fully committed to Cal.
Yeah.
And wants to be here for a long time.
Yeah. So your initial thoughts on give me a timeline. Like, when you first heard that stuff yesterday, like, what were your thoughts on it? And then coming to terms now that he's here or will be here.
I think I've been pretty consistent on this particular piece of news because I think it's hard to understand. One, I think it's hard to understand where you would rate Knowlton's value right now. So I think that he has the positives, which is, he's got this reputation as having done an excellent job on the fundraising side. Mm-hmm. And that being a big piece to why the books are better balanced. And he's definitely somebody that Wilcox really likes, and I think I don't really know, but it seems like the general sense is like people like this guy. So that's it. Those are the two sides. And continuity, there's benefits continuity, benefits not looking for a new AD right now. So that's kind of what you have in this little good corner. Over here, the only thing that you really have, but is like a glaring, hot, on fire piece of garbage, is the basketball program. And if you look at the single hire that was in, not too many sports that you can have like a critical hire like that, but this was one. I mean, we know like the tire fire that is all of the things that came out about how Mark Fox got to Cal, how Knowlton handled that process, how we're evaluating now, what the team looks like 2 years into this tenure, the radio silence after another season of disappointment, the fact that and I'm sorry for not leaving you anything, Rob, but the fact that there's no fans in the stands, so, there's no pressure on it. Like, to me, I would like to see a little bit more of a proactive nature there and an understanding, like, dude, like, this isn't just like Cal where you can like sweep the program under the rug and be like, yep, sorry, basketball sucks, who cares? That's not how it works. Like, this is a legitimate program that has had a tremendous amount of success, particularly in the last decade. And to see it where it is now, I don't think they're really properly estimating the disappointment that's out there among the actual alumni. And so that's a huge negative. So where do I net out on this whole thing? I kind of know like Northwestern's a cool university. They probably have more money. Whatever. Interview if you want. If you want to stay here, fine. I don't really care. I was just like completely ambivalent, and I don't think I've changed. Like, he wants to say, great, cool, awesome. I mean, and we may differ on that, but for me, it was just like, all right, whatever.
No, I think we're on the same page. I think I was like, if you wanted to leave, I could give you reasons why his moving on was is a net positive for us. But if he wants to stay, I can also give you reasons why it's a net positive that he's staying, right? And we talked about this in our Slack channel, but I was just like, the one thing I don't like about this like PR stuff is like the news that he interviewed is already out there, right? And then like the comment that he gave, or the source gave to Wilner, was like how he's committed here for the long haul and all that. And it's like, either address that you interviewed and it was just like, initial contact to your agent and just put people's mind at ease, which I also understand that'll never happen, because that's just not how PR works, especially in the the sports and the rumor world. But like, if you wanted to really like cement it down that he was committed, like, he should have just addressed it and just been like, hey, yeah, they might have contacted my agent, but I really didn't talk to them or anything. Like, I love it here. This is where I want to be, and so on. But the fact that the rumor even got out there to begin with that he had interviewed, granted, we don't know what the term interviewed means. Did he actually have a sit-down interview with them? Like, or was it just like, hey, are you interested in the gig? Like, would you want to talk to us? Like, is that considered the interview? Like, who knows? We don't know the extent of that. So that's why I'm like, I hate going through this, because like, if it's just like, oh, this Northwestern is interested in Jim Knowlton, fine, you can have a list. The chancellor can have a list of guys that they want, or same with ADs looking for coaches, right? Like, Cal is interested in hiring Brad Stevens from the Celtics. Like, sure, we can be interested, like, but does that make it a realistic possibility, or is it that he's interested in us? No.
Indiana just did that.
Yeah.
It was like Indiana offered him $70 million.
Yep, over 7 years, 10 years.
And the way it was addressed was, didn't even consider it.
Yep.
So, like, that's the thing that I actually do think is a good area to kind of poke holes into, because if it was more of the case that you're painting, then you would be able to take that approach. And I think, I'm not NPR, but I would imagine that they would have gone that route.
Yeah.
So I bet that the interview was probably a little bit more legit than just reading the tea leaves on the outside. I just don't know how much I care. But what we don't want to have is somebody that's, Sonny, I hate to say it, but like a Sonny Dykes situation. Just like the perennial interviewer. And I don't, I don't know.
I mean, I think there's times where you can use that to your advantage and get good leverage if you feel like you need an upper hand in contract negotiations or whatnot, right? But like what Sonny did, which is like a yearly wandering eye of like interviewing at places, like that's different. That sends out the wrong message, right? If it's just like a one-off thing, and then next week we hear Knowlton re-ups with Cal and gets a pay raise, like and then we can look back and be like, all right. It was totally to get leverage on this. That's the only reason that happened. But, that didn't happen with Sonny. And I think that's my PTSD here, is that like, could this be like another one of those types of situations, which I don't want it to be. Right?
Yeah. I can only speak from personal experience, but having just done that and gone to get an offer to get leverage and then accidentally falling in love with the company that
you tried to get leverage using
and leaving.
Yep.
It's a dangerous game to play. So I don't mean to say that about my own personal journey. And, but the core of what's happening too is also a little bit, does resemble like if Cal isn't looking at his sort of tenure and saying, hey, you fulfilled 3 years out of a 5-year deal, and we should probably think about, I hear this record fundraising, we should probably think about extending you, and he has to feel like he needs to do that in order to get that extension. That's also not a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So no matter what, that's like, even if they came out next week and they're like, we extended, all right, so every time that Nolan feels like his value is there and he has to get paid, he has to go interview for another job, he will inevitably leave. That's not how you take care of people, and the problem is we know that the that sort of complexity in Cal is kind of par for the course. So, you hope that's not there. I think it's pure speculation on my part that it is there, but it's just all of those things matter, and it matters. I mean, if you were also like in his position, if you felt uncomfortable with having 2 years left and wanting to make a big move, like pulling out of your first hire, wouldn't you feel way better about making that move if you had 4 years or 5 years left on that deal than if you had 2? And so I also think about the dynamics there. If it's all about trust. So if I feel like I have a lot of trust, then I'm going to be able to make those decisions like, hey, I messed up. Right? I'm going to be able to make the move that Rob and others have been saying, like, this is the right move to make, whether or not I spend enough time. Anyways, pure speculation over here, but very interesting dynamic going on, and something that, borrowing a line from Drew, just like understanding that there might be more there than what we're currently seeing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's particularly good.
I think you're spot on. The one caveat that a lot of people I've seen on Twitter talk about is like, what happens if he does leave? Like, what happens with the whole Wilcox? Like, is the new AD going to want to come in and is he going to be on a short leash again? Like, because it's a new AD and a new coach. But the one thing I will say to that is when Mike Williams left, Wilcox and Lindsey Gottlieb were the two head coaches that were on the search committee for the new AD. Right? So, if that was the case and they hired Knowlton, I would be very surprised if they didn't include Wilcox on that search committee again if Knowlton were to leave, or if he left, or if he leaves at any point and Wilcox is still here.
I also don't think that we can have a revolving door at AD.
No, you can't. We can't have 4 ADs in a decade.
Yeah, because that'll tire him out. He's not going to want to be on search committees every 4 years, or every 3 years. That's not a good look for. That's not a good use of his time as a head football coach. Like, he needs to be doing other things. So, I mean, it could be a bunch of nothing. It could be representative
could be
of something
something
bigger. And it's really hard to say, but no matter what, that story like that, I agree with what you said. Is if a source came in and was like, yeah, he interviewed, and then it was like, no, actually he just like knows the upper brass at Northwestern and was like talking to them. It wasn't an interview. The source was wrong. Really easy to kind of come out and sort of say that defiantly, definitively. Cal PR team did not do that. So I don't know.
We're just reading tea leaves here, people. All conjecture mostly. All right, moving on. Now we go on to actual football stuff. The first thing is, I didn't put this in the rundown because I totally forgot, but Cal had pro day, of course. Cam Bynum, Jake Curhan, Ziande, all in attendance and showing out. I believe Trey Beck, our dear friend, and Jordan Duncan as well, both ran their combine numbers and all that. Just to run you through some numbers here. All three first-time testers, that's Jake Curhan, Ziande, and Cam, had solid marks in their 40-yard dash to the respective groups. 4.49 for Cam, and the 4.498 is the Pro Day Combine average for a cornerback. Ziande Johnson with a 4.82. 4.96 is the Pro Day Combine average for a defensive lineman. And Jake Curhan with a 5.42. 5.26 is the Pro Day Combine average for an offensive lineman. Bynum also showed out in other measurements, testing in at 10'9", for the broad jump, 4.01 seconds in the 20-yard shuttle, and 6.98 in the cone drill. All of those numbers testing at or above the Pro Day Combine average.
I mean, the only one I've been keeping tabs on is Cam, and I think I saw third, fourth round projections for him.
Yeah, there was Dave Lombardi at The Athletic put out his mock draft, and he had the Niners picking Cam in the 5th round.
Oh, I love that. Yes, let's make that happen.
But the Niners also picked up Elijah Molden from Washington in the 2nd, so...
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Did we go Mac Jones or Justin Fields? Different podcast. So, Oh wait, Jake doesn't project to be in the draft right now.
Yeah,
I've seen.
Yeah, it looks like he's a UDFA, but who knows? Maybe he'll interview well with players. Or
anything on Ziande?
I haven't seen anything, but I would assume just from his measurables alone, he's worth taking. Someone will take a UDFA on him.
Yeah. So it's really Cam. I mean, it's really Cam right now.
Yep.
It's crazy. We're just not. I mean, we're not putting out. I think this next class, these last two classes, will have more, but we're just not putting out like we used to do in the Tedford era.
Yeah.
Like in the NFL draft.
Well, the thing is too, this COVID year turned everything into whack. Because, like, think about it, right? Like, if we had our regular COVID year, who's going in this draft? That's Cam Good, Coyne, Cam Bynum, Elijah Hicks, all those guys. Like, this is the draft that they're going into. They're not, like, half of those guys, or more than half of those guys, aren't coming back for another year. So
yeah, that's a great point.
We would have had a lot more this year.
Do you think Chase is an NFL prospect?
I heard from a secondary person that, like, if Chase could build on that sophomore year he had, right? That, you know, he hurt himself, but the stretch that he was having and how he played when he came back, if he can play like that for a whole season, my secondary person who talked to an NFL scout said that there's no reason to doubt he couldn't play himself into being a top 10 quarterback drafted.
Wow.
Like, not top 10 overall, but like one of the top 10 QBs.
At the position. So
at the position. That's still drafted.
Top 4 rounds?
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's still drafted. I mean, depending on how deep the class is, right?
Like the average quarterback class, there's like 4 to 5 going in the first round now.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So you're like saying from rounds 2 to 7, you're in the top 5.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's really high.
Yeah.
That's good.
But we don't know because remember last year's wipe, right?
Yeah.
So we shall see. But speaking of quarterbacks, great transition. 2 quarterbacks have left. We didn't talk about this. Spencer Brash and Jaden Casey both departing and no longer with the program. We only had 3 quarterbacks on the roster, only 2 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster at the spring game. But your thoughts?
Well, I'm bummed to see Spencer Brash go. I love Eric Brash. He's awesome. And I know that Spencer, was recruited under Beau Baldwin. And the same thing with Jaden Casey. So, but just, I know Spencer I liked a lot because, he would always be practicing, even in the pandemic. It's like mask on, throwing balls. It's just like that work ethic. That work ethic is amazing. And I just think that that's what you look for. So I was pretty bummed about that one. I thought that he might stay. But, I think he gave it competed. And then once they announced that he wasn't at number 2, I think he bounced. And that's totally fair. Totally fair. And then Jaden Casey is a little more confusing because he's obviously a year younger. But I know it sort of felt like the same thing. Like he got passed up on the depth chart and then bounced. But man, that dude really looked like he had a lot of potential. And that one really hurt because I thought that he was going to be the next big thing, especially coming out of Fresno. Ties to Aaron Rodgers and all that. So it was, I think it hurts a little bit. It definitely hurts the depth, but you can't feel bad about our 1 and 2 right now.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me, like that I talked about when these two guys left is, they bet on them. They're betting on themselves. Like they see they're gonna have to stick or like sit behind Chase for another year, and that means that they're just gonna have to sit there and wait. And there's no guarantee that they're gonna be, a starter. And then on top of that, like as you said, Zach Johnson looked like he was gonna be the number 2 going into the spring game. And then that's when Spencer Brash declared that he was transferring. So it could have been that, like, okay, if I'm not even able to make number 2 here, or they don't rate me as much, I'm going to bet on myself and go elsewhere and try and get the start. So the same with Jaden Casey. Jaden Casey was way early in spring ball, too. It was like week 1 or 2 when he departed.
Yeah, you just got the sense that he saw something and then pulled the trigger, and then same thing, Spencer seeing that at spring game was like, all right,
yeah,
can't fault him for that.
Nope.
But any word on where they're heading?
I haven't kept track. I can look it up while we keep talking. But I mean, the biggest thing for them is like they're still so young, and the quarterback. When people like talk about like quarterback transfers and they're like, oh, it sucks. Like, yes, but you also only get one quarterback on the field at any given time. It's not one of those positions that you need depth, but you don't need depth like you do like at running back or offensive line or wide receiver. Like it's not the same. It's not the same type of depth. So like 2 guys leaving, you're always going to have QB attrition because there's only one QB on the field at all times, and they feel like they are able to play. You're always going to have guys like that think that they're able to play, and they're going to bet on themselves and go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they could also come back, right? We saw that with Gabe Cherry.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty interesting scenario where he entered in the transfer portal and then came back out. Have you gotten the sense that Gabe is going to play this year, or is he going to?
So my sense of the timing, and I guess this leads directly into the next bit of news, is that the timing of the news aligned perfectly with the announcement that Brett Johnson is going to miss the 2021 season, right? Because the Gabe Cherry news came out, I think like a day or 2 before it was announced that Johnson is out for the season. There's no way. I don't think that there's a way that's a coincidence. I think the Brett Johnson stuff may have happened a little bit before Gabe Cherry coming back, and they called up Cherry after that announcement, was like, we need you back.
We got to have you.
Yeah. So
that's wild because his post was like, I persevered.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Through some shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, this has been hard, but like loves Cal, but like football, damn, like the hardest time of my life. And then it was like, all right, I'm back. I'm like, awesome. I mean, great.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, it said he's left the portal and he returned to Cal. Does that mean he's playing football? Like, I don't. That's what I still can't gauge. Like, is he returning to the football team? Is he just no longer pursuing football? Like, is he just coming back? Because he maybe got into a master's program. Like, I don't know. I just don't know, and I guess we'll find out soon enough. But I guess we got to talk about the big news since we're talking about it. Is Brett Johnson is missing the 2021 season. I'm going to read you the official release from Cal Bears. Head coach Justin Wilcox announced Wednesday that defensive lineman Brett Johnson will miss the 2021 season after successful surgery to repair a broken hip sustained in an automobile accident. Johnson is expected to make a full recovery and be eligible for the 2022 campaign. He will have 3 seasons of collegiate eligibility left when he returns in 2022. While we will certainly miss Brett on the field this coming season, the most important thing right now is that he focus on his overall health and well-being, Wilcox said. As his teammates and coaches, we will help him through this difficult time. When he is ready to return to the field, we will welcome him with open arms. I appreciate all the support that I have received from family, friends, and teammates and coaches, and so many others since the accident, Johnson said. I am looking forward to making a full recovery and getting back on the field in 2022. Done.
I mean, take the expected wins this year, and I think I knocked 2 off. That's the impact. I really do. Yeah. It's huge.
I said in our Slack channel, if every sack, tackle for loss, and play breakup disruption that Brett Johnson would have caused equates to the offense having to score one more touchdown. This sucks.
Yeah, sucks.
It sucks
really,
so bad.
It really is. It's just, there's a lot. I mean, you can't replace somebody like Brett Johnson. You can't replace the guy you don't have Aldon Smith if Justin Smith is doing, that's right?
Yeah, you're right.
Is not occupying 1 or 2 O-linemen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what made Aldon Smith so successful. He hasn't been able to repeat it since. I mean, Aldon Smith's train wreck. We don't have to talk about him. Yeah. But, that's the impact that Brett Johnson has for this team. And I don't really see us replacing it. And we can – it just puts a lot more pressure too, knowing that DeRuyter is gone. So DeRuyter was – big fan of the disguises and the blitzes and all those things that we're doing. And we're going to see a very interesting progression of defense. I think it'll just be interesting to see because one, we'll answer the question that we talked about before. Is it Wilcox? Is it TDR? Is it Sermon? Who's the one that's really the architect of the defense? But then two is how do you replace that type of player at that position? That was really critical to our success. And can you do it? But what do you think, Rob?
I mean, you can't understate how important he is. My God, the thing with him and this upcoming season was that he was going to be the focal point of how this defense is run, and that's exactly what you were alluding to. Is how this defense is going to change, because he was the guy that was listed on the roster at DL, right? He wasn't listed at a specific position, so it's clear that they were going to move him around. And on top of that, now that we actually had depth at nose guard and defensive tackle, we could actually move him to defensive end. And with Ziande leaving, it made perfect sense for him to occupy one of those DN spots. And now you have, and then you had an outside, from a pass rush, you have Brett on one end of the line, you have Jace Tevis on the other end of the line, or one of the other guys that comes in like Calhoun or Derek Wilkins. And then at outside linebacker, you have Cam Good, you have Orrin Patu, you have Coin Dang, who's listed at outside linebacker on the roster, at least for now. And then you have your inside linebackers, of course, with Iosefa, Ansalados, Tattersall. And then you have that nose guard rotation that I was just talking about with McKenzie and Maldonado and some of those other guys. There's a couple more. And that would have totally transformed our defense. But now that he's gone, at least for the season, it's all right, how do we emulate his production by committee. If one guy steps up and emulates what they expected of him this year, like that's like a godsend, right? That's divine intervention for us, for someone to step up and us not lose a step. But if we can even get like 0.5 or 0.75 out of one single guy, I'd say that's a success. Like, and I'd be more excited to see 2022. But the reality is we're probably going to have 3 or 4 guys having to try and make up one Brett Johnson. And is that going to be good enough? Like, will we get enough consistency from that?
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
And that's frustrating.
Yeah. So who are, like, if you had to pick one or maybe 2 guys that you think could do that, who would it be?
That's a good question. I'm going to pull up the roster real quick. But as I bring that up, all right. We look. I mean, let me kind of flip the question to you. Where's the pressure going to be more mounted on? Is it going to be the nose guards, or do you think it's the defensive ends with his loss?
I was thinking nose guard.
You're thinking nose guard. Okay.
Yeah, the interior positions.
Well, our nose guard guys are Stanley McKenzie, Ricky Correa, Gunnar Rask, and Aaron Maldonado. I mean, the amount of positive things that came out of, last season was with Stanley McKenzie, right? That was the guy that everyone was talking about, how he looked ready to play. And, injuries happened, and, COVID happened with the defensive line and all that. And, that's what we're going to just scrap it. And we didn't really get to see McKenzie do it. But, I mean, he's 6'2", 325 pounds. Like, that's nose guard prototype size that you want. I mean, Ricky Correa, too, 6'4", 350. Like, those are guys that now have the size. Like, to be totally fair, like, Brett did not have defensive tackle size, right? He's 6'5", 300 pounds. Like, he's built more as a pass rush off the edge guy, like just overpowering tackles. Like, he's not one of those guys that is going to try and squeeze by a double team from a center and a guard. Like, that's just not, I don't think that's a skill set, really. So I think now you have a more tradition. You're going to have more of a traditional look. You're going to have a guy that just sits there as a bowling ball and just occupies 2 guys and just eats up space and lets the other guys roam. For me, it's the question of, can someone emulate the sacks, the havoc plays, the tackles for loss, right? That's the only thing I'm worried about.
Yep. What about on the outside? Do you think Derek Wilkins can factor into this?
I'm not sure about Wilkins, but Calhoun, because Calhoun's the one that's early, right? He's been here through the spring, and he looks the part, right? He looks like a defensive end. I think he still needs, some more time in the weight room and all that, but he has that now over the summer, and he's gotten a head start on the playbook. And I think all of us can agree, Andrew Browning is a pretty damn good coach on the D-line, that I think he's going to bring him up to speed pretty quick. Like, Calhoun's the guy that I would be, like, very, very interested in seeing in fall camp and seeing, has he developed enough where they're able to trust him. At least on, like, not every down, but at least in certain packages. Because if you can get that out of a freshman, and you have Jaden Roberts and J.H. Tevis and Wilkins coming in, and who knows, maybe they'll tap into the transfer market too now that they kind of need it. But yeah, I would expect Calhoun to be a factor big time. That's my dude. I think he's gonna be the dude.
So not all hope is lost.
Not all hope. Hope is never lost. Hope springs eternal.
Always, especially in spring. Particularly in spring.
Mm-hmm. Particularly in the spring. All right. Some more football stuff. We didn't talk about the two hires. I don't think we talked about the two hires. Did we talk about Keith Hayward? I think we might have talked about Keith Hayward, but we did not. We definitely did not talk about Trey Watson, who is
we did,
the DB coach.
Yep.
Did we?
Yep.
Are you sure it wasn't a private conversation between you and I?
100%.
100%. You think we talked about it?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take your word on it, and we're gonna bypass it. But if the readers or if the listeners listen, they're like, "You guys never talked about it." We're just gonna have to. All right. Well, I guess we're coming back to record another one. But all right. I guess we can move on from that. Let's. The last football bit of news is to talk about the spring game. Were you able to watch the spring game?
No, I was traveling.
Yeah,
I was in Hawaii.
Yeah. So I don't know how this conversation is going to go, but I'll give my initial thoughts. I have found a copy of the spring game, so I'll send it to you, and you can quickly watch it. Not today, but at a certain point, and then I'll get your takes on it. But
deal.
Overall, I think we saw a lot more passing. We saw a lot more of what they were trying to build the offense to be. That was the key for me, is like seeing the offense. Are we going to see a little bit more diversity of plays? How are they going to use the wide receivers, especially the younger guys, right? Like, all of us are hyped about Jeremiah Hunter and Justin Baker and Aiden Lee, like all those guys. How are we going to use them? Are we going to start to use them? And that's what you saw. You saw guys start to get reps, get plays. Jeremiah Hunter had this like really sick catch on the sidelines early in the game. And then, of course, the big one that everyone wanted to talk about was Jermaine Terry, right? Like,
yep.
Is he ready to play right away? He's definitely ready to play right away. He was dinged up on a drag route, or like it was either a drag route or like a little out into the flat, and the DB came in to tackle him after he caught the pass and went low, which is of course what you're supposed to do. Got a little dinged up. Thankfully, in the photos after, he was on crutches, but no like protective boot or anything like that. So I'm hoping for the best here. Like, otherwise, if there was like an injury that they need to get x-rayed or otherwise, like I think you put that boot or like a brace on your knee like immediately, right? To make sure you don't damage it even further. But I think not having that, just, wearing slides and on crutches, I think it's a small knock. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
That was amazing. I think that was dude, the second you said crutches, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. That's not good whatsoever. Yeah. That sounds awful. I don't know if you're supposed to. Are you supposed to go low? That's when you're playing your own team?
Well, I mean, I think it might be instinctual too, because you're taught for like tight ends and stuff, because you're undersized, right? You can't go high on guys that, like, if you're a 6 foot,
go
like
Ed Reed on them.
If you're like a 6 foot 180 corner and you're going up at 6'4", 275 tight end, where's your leverage? You got to go low.
We had some bowling ball guys in the past that would just launch into dudes.
Yep.
All right. So that's devastating. What other bad news do we have? Offense didn't look good. Shocker.
I wouldn't say the offense didn't look good. I think that the offense is definitely evolving. We saw a lot more like play action, and the run game was pretty solid. Like, especially the younger running backs, they looked good. And then we saw a bunch of Zach Johnson at QB2, who I thought made some freshman mistakes, but all in all, like, he made the right reads. Just his throws were a little off. He was getting a little antsy in the pocket at times, but he made the right reads, went to his safety valve at the right times, got the ball to his playmakers, let them go to work. That's exactly what you want from a younger quarterback. Like, not to take the gambles initially, staying calm and knowing where his guys are. But for me, like, the big part was seeing the younger wide receivers. Like, I think all of them performed well. They all looked ready to play. Particularly like guys like Justin and Jeremiah, because Jeremiah, of course, was injured last year, right? But Justin just never saw the field last season, which I was very surprised about, because I think we all just assumed, like, why wouldn't you, if it's a pass year, why wouldn't you at least give him the snaps to get ready, or like to get that experience in? But I mean, I trust the coaching staff in whatever decision they make. But just seeing all those guys, and just the play calling a little bit more pass heavy, a little less run heavy, and going from there. Like, we'll see. This is a good building block. I thought it was a good building block spring game, from my opinion.
It's good. Yeah, I heard Chase really played way better than Zach Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's clear he's the QB1. There's no going around it.
No doubt.
No doubt. All right. I guess I quickly on the defensive end, I think seeing Coyne at outside linebacker, like, that was like mind-blowing. There was like one point where we had like Coyne at outside, Iosefa, Tattersall, and Cam Good on the other end, and I was like, that is amazing. And then seeing Trey Pastor at inside linebacker, like, his frame alone, 6'2", 225, like, he looks like an NFL linebacker, like, just size-wise. So I'm very interested to see how much, like, they had to have seen something extensive in order to move a potential starter at defensive back into a brand new position. And, like, they're going to have to want to use him right away, right? Otherwise, why would you move a guy like that unless you're like, all right, he's not only going to provide depth, but he's going to be a guy that pushes to be in the two deep, like, right away. He looked like it, and, like, I'm just looking at all the inside linebackers, and I'm like, this is probably the most athletic group we've had in quite a few years, right? And all of those guys were, like, rated guys. I think that's the big part for me. It's like, we've talked about this with the offensive line for years, right? It's like, we don't want to talk about stars being in recruiting ratings being like the judgment of it all, but the stars set the foundation of how far your potential goes. And looking at, like, some of these groups now, like the O-line has that now, where it's not just like 2-star guys or walk-ons, that are a lot of the rotation guys. It's 3-star, 4-star guys that are just, like, cemented into that 2-deep rotation. You see that now with the inside linebackers. You see a lot of the 3-star, 4-star guys that are in there now, and you already have that foundation set. And now it's gonna look better. They're gonna look stronger, faster, more instinctive, because they have the natural athletic ability already. So that's the group. That's the group I would say to watch for when you rewatch the spring game. But yeah, that's it for the spring game. And I think that's it for football. That is all of the football talk.
Man.
Woo.
Good.
Woo.
Good.
Good. All right. Basketball talk.
Shoot me now.
Matt Bradley is transferring to San Diego State. He announced that. I think he announced the San Diego State move a couple of weeks ago. So he's gone. That means we have an open scholarship spot, and we have been linked to a point guard from DePaul, who was the backup to Charlie Moore. Charlie Moore also is in the transfer portal as well. So
again,
his fourth.
That dude's transferred so many times.
Yeah,
Charlie, why, dude? You could have just stayed here.
Charlie
transferred to Kansas. Transferred to
DePaul. Yeah, this will be his fourth school. I mean, since we're on that transfer portal topic, like, Darius McNeil has transferred from SMU. I think he's at UTSA now. And then who else transferred? Someone else transferred. Charles Smith transferred from SMU out to somewhere too. He's a former Cal commit. He never ended up coming here, but and then yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's the roster right now. We're without our best player, and the only best player we've had probably really for the last 4 years. And yeah, that's our roster. From your perspective, like I just need your take. You know my feelings on this.
Well, I think the important thing is that I'll be fully vaccinated so I can go boo in person and see if that makes any difference. I kid. For the Cal Athletics people that listen to our podcast, I would never do anything like that. I just think like the outsider, I don't know, man. Basketball is super tough. I stand by kind of what I said earlier on. I thought that the Pac-12 doing really well in the tournament was a net positive for the program because it sort of helped to explain the regression. If you're going to say like, okay, like why did you regress? Like, all right, the league got better, and we saw that in the tournament play out in a very serious and awesome way. At the same time, we've seen what good coaching looks like and how much coaching matters. I think coaching matters in college basketball more than maybe any sport that I follow. And, what happened at UCLA was not an accident. And, it's coaching. So for this program, we're in dire straits. I think I don't know. I can't see us being, I can't really see losing our best player coming off of this season going with this recruiting path forward that looks rosy. And I'm a pretty optimistic person. I like to think. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my view. It's just sort of, it's one of those things. I'll go in person. It always helps to go in person. Always, always, always helps. But I'll go in person, watch for myself, and I'll probably be like, damn, where's your point guard that just shoots 50-foot threes and makes them all the time?
So here's my thing, right? Is, like we talked about this extensively, but you've always mentioned like, hey, you know what? If this year we actually had people in the stands and they saw the ticket numbers declining and they saw like, people not coming to games anymore, like maybe that would have forced them to pull the trigger on, moving on from Fox. My devil's advocate to that would be, what if there was no difference this year from the year before? Because the year before was already so unenthusiastic, like uneventful. Like there weren't already a lot of people, anyways. Like I'll specify this way. Like if the big thing is season ticket holder numbers, right? Like that's like a big indicator. So what if the season ticket holders was already so low from the Viking era that it only let's say it either increased a little bit or it stayed the same the year Fox was hired because of how atrocious it was for the previous 2 years. Then for this upcoming season, let's say it stayed the same because it was bad last year, or let's say it took a little bit of a dip even more because the actual real fans that love this program and love watching basketball are just like, this team isn't good. Like, it's not good under this regime, and there's no reason for me to do it. If you're sitting at like 1% season ticket holder and you drop to 0.5, like is that a significant enough drop for you to like say that the drop in season ticket holders is enough? Like, or wouldn't you just ride it out? Like, I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit.
Maybe. I don't think that the season ticket holdership at Cal for Cal basketball would ever be, in that example. I know it's an extreme example.
Yeah, it's
but,
an extreme example.
In that case, yeah, maybe it's not a core decision that you're looking at. It's not something that it's not a measure of success that you're looking for.
Right. I mean, because
I think it seems like Knowlton came in knowing he wanted to give him 3 years.
Well, I mean, that's his quote, right? That I've read is that he likes to give coaches 3 years to know what he has. and they're gonna spin it. I don't mean to spin it in a negative way, but or in the negative connotation, but they're gonna say like last year was a wipe year. It was COVID. We had excuses of why the team didn't, work, despite what all of us or even like Nick writes or whoever else writes. Like even if they just look at the basketball and like determine it rationally of, all right, screw the excuses. Let's just look at all the on the court product. Like, they're gonna say that's all inclusive. Like it was just a COVID year. We're gonna wipe. It doesn't really count. And we're gonna give them a fresh start. This upcoming season. But like if you're there, does him even eclipsing his first season here total do it for you? For him to be kept around? Like that's my thing. Because you dip down to like the Viking level, right? This season in terms of wins and losses. If this upcoming season, if he goes back up to like 8 or 10, like is that good enough? Like is that like okay, they're recovering from COVID, so you give them a fourth year? Like I don't know what you would say that bar is.
I think it's 10-10 in conference. Like 500 in conference is kind of the bar for success. That would have to be a drastic improvement.
A very, very drastic improvement.
I think that's what it would be.
That's tough. Because they went, let's see. In 18-19, which was his first year, they went 3-15 in conference. And then last season, 19-20, 19-20 was his first year. The previous year was Viking.
That was Viking.
Yeah, 19-20 in conference, they went 7-11.
Right.
And this past season, they went 3-17. So,
oh my God!
So you're
3-17.
Yes. So you're expecting
you
them
can't
to
even. No. You can't take 3-17 and be like the Pac-12 was good that year. Just disproves my argument. Oof, that's brutal.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, so I guess you give them 3 years, but even if it's still bad, like, because the 3 year after the 3 year mark is where you come to a crossroads, right? In terms of, do you give him an extension or do you fire him? Because why would he be recruiting like 2 years down the road if he knows he might be let go like after his contract's done, right? Because the final year, the 5th year, if he doesn't get a contract extension by then, like, or before the start of the 5th season, he's a lame duck coach, right? You know that. But so like that transition year between 3 and 4 is like where it's huge. You can give him another 3-year deal. I don't know. I don't know what the benchmarking is to like say he was a successful coach or he improved or if he didn't improve.
No, I think it's right about. I mean, I don't know. I think it's right around 500.
500 conference.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go worse than 500 out of comp. I don't know if you can go. Maybe you can go if you went slightly under 500 out of conference and then 500 in conference, you'd probably be okay. If you go,
because the argument for that would be that you got better as the season progressed.
Correct.
And
when it mattered.
And that's a net positive. This was weirder because we actually became worse. We were 9-20. We were 9-20 overall, and we're 3-17 in conference.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, to me, it's like a let it ride year. So it's like if it's good, great. If it's not, we know what to do.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
It's upsetting. This is just upsetting.
Is that all for our fun topics?
Yeah, that's all for our fun topics. Actually, one more. In the grander scheme of basketball, Arizona has finally moved on from Sean Miller.
Finally.
Finally.
What a lucky guy.
12 years, 5 Pac-12 championships, 7 NCAA tournaments, 3 Elite 8 runs, and they finally self-imposed a postseason ban starting this year after they were hit with multiple Class 1 Level 1 violations, and they finally move on from Sean Miller.
One of the most infamous cheaters in the sports history. How did he have a job? It was like crazy. We were talking the other day about this, and I was like, I can't believe he gets to kind of ride off in the sunset with, this way. I mean, it really is like one of those things. Yeah, he got let go, but it's like not when all of the scandal hit. It's like his image is way better than it should be. Way better.
They did a real good job taking the PR hit for him. But yeah,
good riddance.
Good riddance. Goodbye. And I think they have hired Gonzaga assistant Tommy Floyd to be their new head coach. So they actually got a good one, in my opinion, which sucks. They got another good coach back to back, at least basketball wise. Anyways, let's check the Twitterverse, shall we, to see if we have gotten any questions for us before we wrap this thing up. And we move to our notifications. We got a couple questions. Sid, of course, our dear listener friend, asks, now that Brett Johnson is out for the season, who do you see taking his place? I think we talked about that. Aspiring CPA asks, thoughts on Knowlton interviewing for the Northwestern position? We talked about that. John Clemens on Twitter asks, is Wilcox capable of having an aggressive offensive game plan, or do you think he puts limits on the OC? Actually a good question. What do you think?
Yeah. The old Sonny Dykian question of, does the Sonny Dykes offense negatively impact the defense, or does a Wilcox defense negatively impact the offense? I think that Wilcox brought in somebody like Musgrave and brought in somebody like Beau Baldwin not to put a lid on what they want to do offensively. The only area where I think you might see some of that is you get the sense that he wants to run a Wisconsin-style offense. That is, big guys up front, can run really effectively, and leans into the tight end. That's my sense. But then has dynamics of the more modern game. So as to putting a lid, I don't think so. I think there's some situations where maybe the call is more conservative than perhaps the offensive coordinator would want, but that's business. At the end of the day, if you were running a company and you hired somebody for your marketing department, would you let them do everything that they wanted to do? Or would you let them do 90% of what they wanted to do, but then still be concerned about a couple things that might seem off-brand? So there I go with my business analogies, but I don't know, Rob. I'll pass it over to you. I ultimately don't think it's as big as people perceive it to be. It's certainly not as big as when we looked at Dykes and the impact that the Dykes offense had on a defense. And I think that you can see that play out in the air raid, in the versions of the air raid that now exist pretty predominantly across college football, and the fact that the Big 12 doesn't really play any defense anymore. But over to you. What do you think?
I think you're mostly right. I think for me, the benchmark for that question would be this upcoming season. I know we said that last year too, but last year was so much of a push because of COVID and them not being able to practice properly and install the offense and all that. But they got a dummy season in last year to slowly install the offense. And I still stand by my tinfoil hat, theory that they withheld most of the playbook after the debacle, which was the first week of that season of you're playing UCLA and you have a 48-hour turnaround. I think they packed it in then and was just you know what? There's no reason to showcase it any of our wider playbook, because this season doesn't really even count. Our games might be canceled anyway. So why do we if we end up playing just one game this season, why would we showcase all of our best offense in a single game that we play? So that's my tinfoil hat theory on why last season was so conservative. So that being said, I think this season If everyone is healthy, like if Chase is healthy for the entire season, all the offensive weapons are healthy for the entire season, like we don't have any of those like, COVID reasons and half our offensive line is missing and all that stuff. I think this is the year where you'll see like them just go, hey, Bill, take it away, and we've gone and talked to Wilcox about like the football 101 class that we had, and one of the things he talked about was like he's a big like overarching game manager. So like he would tell Beau Baldwin like, hey, if we make it on first down here, like, or if we get to fourth down on this and we can't convert, like let's just go for it. Like he does those like big planning things. He doesn't really I don't think he really tells the offensive coordinator like, yeah, let's just keep running for this play or this drive. Like let's not pass. I don't think he's that micromanagey. So yeah, all in all, I think this season is the big benchmark for that offense. If you see any sort of expansive offensive playbook that we've ever seen with everyone healthy, I think that's the key sign that there were other extenuating circumstances that led to the playbooks being so small. I mean, everyone talks about like that Cheez-It Bowl year, and all of us are like, we found out that Chase like had a broken shoulder, like Patrick Laird told us like after the season, like he couldn't throw very far. And then we had like Brandon McElwain, who like pretty much looked like he was dealing with yips, like he just like was afraid to throw. Like there was just so many different things that happened, and like we could actually point to reasons. I think this season, barring injury, like we can actually point to the coaching staff and be like, all right, they're actually being conservative instead of just opening it up. If it goes out that way.
Agreed. Well said.
Yeah. That's it. We don't have any more questions. But as we finish out, of course, we always have time for our victory cannon. All right. You got anything for the victory cannon this week? Andy's muted.
Diana's coming home right now, so there's about to be noise.
That's fine. It's fine. See, everyone gets to hear her voice now.
I'm going on mute. I'm assuming you can edit this part.
Yeah.
All right. Busser is drinking water super loud. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Victory cannon. This will be another mindfulness kind of. Well, first thing. Let's talk about what we talked about the other day. The Zelda game, apparently on Nintendo Switch, is supposed to be so life-changing that it's a lesson in mindfulness, and that's amazing. So that's a really good plug. I don't have a Switch, but I was close to getting one because of that. I was like, oh, it sounds amazing. But
when you get the vaccine, you just come over and play it, and then you'll be like, all right, this is worth getting, or this isn't worth getting. That's how
that is a real thought that I had.
Yeah.
The privileged life.
I'm the Blockbuster of Andy's video game life.
The thing that I wanted to address today was I have been keeping a gratitude journal, and it's a fantastic way to sort of think about, okay, who served you today? How did I serve others? And what do I want to set as my goal for tomorrow?
That's awesome.
And it's been a fantastic way to just kind of organize, and it actually helps you think about the positives, and you get really detailed about the positives that happened to you, so that you remember more so the positives than the negatives. And it kind of, over time, helps actually change your mind. And it's been a really, really helpful practice. And it's not easy, especially doing it every night. I had to take a little gratitude journal on vacation with me and be really committed to it. And the first time I did like 3 days and 2 days off, and 3 days and 2 days off. And then I fell off of it entirely. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to commit to this. And so as you go through this long podcast, which was about some topics that weren't so pleasant, I think this might be, it's been a helpful tool for me, might be a helpful tool for somebody else. So that's my victory cannon for today.
Ooh, that's a good one. Damn. All right, what am I gonna put in the victory cannon for mine? Holy crap. I guess you know what? It's the I couldn't think of I can't think of any better cliche, so I won't even say it. But I think right now, like with all of the issues in society, all that stuff, we haven't had time to address it on this podcast. Which I mean directly affects me for me being Asian over the last few weeks, but overall, just to spare everyone the details because I feel like everyone's gone through it or talked about it, to a certain degree. I think I'm gonna spotlight some Asian American businesses in the Bay Area. If you're around here that you want to support, of course, the first one, of course, is one of our dear friends. Runs a beer company called Tokyo Beer. You can order it online and get it in multiple stores across the Bay Area. Really good stuff. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. If you want a little bit more of if you want to associate or get to know me a little bit more, I think the big movie right now is Minari, which is all over. It's she's Yoon Ye-jung, who is the grandma in the role, is sweeping basically all the awards for Best Supporting Actress. I think the Oscars is the only thing she has left, so fingers crossed that she gets it. Fun story is that she's actually the aunt of one of my friends from high school, so we actually saw her a lot growing up, and then to see her up in the Oscars, it's mind blowing.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then the last, I'm gonna plug a little food place. Andy, you and I, we're gonna go soon because both of us will be vaccinated soon. So yeah, get your vaxes. But anyways, one of my favorite burger joints in South San Francisco is called The Hidden Spot. Wagyu burgers, crazy good toppings, and then they have these really, really good sweet and spicy chicken wings. They call them the MVP wings. Freaking awesome. Sandwiches are off the charts too, but it's in South San Francisco, so I can't always get it. Fun part, they just made a location in Embryville.
Wow.
So the Hidden Spot is located inside the bar called Hometown Heroes. I believe it's on Adeline and 40th. Go check it out. Support Asian American businesses. It's super good, man. They're Japanese style fried chicken sandwiches. The karage burgers are solid. Any of their burgers are good too. They're all Wagyu burgers. If you're not a meat eater, they have the Impossible Burger that you can switch to, so you can do all that. They have a bunch of sandwiches as well. But get the MVP wings. Get an order of tots. Get a burger.
My goodness, this looks good.
Yeah, and they're not they don't skimp out on the patty too. It's a thick, a 3rd pound patty.
Dude,
they're delicious. It's delicious.
The cheese and the onion rings.
Oh yeah, the sheriff with the barbecue sauce. Oh yeah, that one's great.
All right, that's great. Fully support that. Yeah, we've been on a very intentional journey. So we got when we were down in Southern California, we went to an actual masseuse and talked to them and about their experience, and they talked about it being really hard, so we tipped her super well. And then as we've been back here, just going to as many Asian-owned businesses as possible. We went to Tokyo Fish Market.
Love that place.
Yeah, just a bunch of local spots. So very intentional about that. So I hope that everybody else is as well. And there's a lot going on, whether it's Dante Wright and Adam Toledo, and the eventual verdict that will come down in the George Floyd trial. It's just there's a lot, and I know like a tendency is to run away from it, but now is not the time to do that. It's the time to lean in. It's time to stay active. It's time to read. It's time to be an ally, whether it be with our Asian brothers and sisters or whether it be with our Black and brown brothers and sisters. It's super important, and it's kind of on us as me as a white male, and speaking more broadly, like it's on us to make this change, and we have to be advocates and allies and be out in the streets, and but not just there, like donating and being vocal. And trust me, like it's hard, but every night I go to bed, I read the new Jim Crow and just try and continue to educate myself.
Yep.
And I think like that's what I hope that everybody else is doing, because we need it.
Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback off of that, I think the last thing I would say is don't ever lose the willingness to learn, especially regarding these types of topics. I think that's the big thing, is that if you're always willing to learn, there's always something else to learn, right? And that's where you're going to get your most growth. So I've learned a lot. I know Andy's learned a lot. I know a bunch of other people that have learned a lot over the last 12 months, I'd say. I'd say the last 12 months have been pretty key. So, yeah, always pursue and teaching yourself and growing, and just having that heart of sympathy and empathy and learning. Yeah, that's what makes us human. And also, hopefully, that's all for all the Cal fans.
We need a cannon.
Yeah, we need a cannon sound. Maybe I'll go download a cannon sound.
Yeah.
Sound. All right, I'm gonna go look
The
for
cannon sound.
Yeah. But anyways, that wraps it up for us on the Golden Bearcast. You can find me at Rob11HWANG. You can find Andy at
Andy J Beast Mode. Now public again. Oh yeah.
You can find us on Twitter at Golden Bearcast. You can find all our written stuff at rightforcalifornia.com. And that's it. We're a part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears. Now this.
That looks better. that looks a lot better.
So hot. All right. Thank you.
All right, we circle back. And we return with Andy's vegetables in tow.
What? You're not gonna... No, you got to cut right before I say it. Now I have to go get my vegetables.
All right, here we go.
Can't say.
All right. This is going to go outtakes.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.